Hello and very warm welcome to our Change and Challenge in interview series. We are very pleased to have Guido Aufdemkamp from Flexible Packaging Europe today with us. As you may know, the Change and Challenge is an initiative of individuals and corporations concerned with the impact of food waste, as well as the impact of flexible packaging in our environment. And I believe Guido will be one of the best people to talk about this topic. I'm also today with my colleague, 𝗧𝗹𝗸, who is the responsible person for all our content at Change and Challenge, who will also conduct the interview today. And without further ado, I would say let's dive in, right?
Okay, it's nice having you here, Guido. We're pleased that you honored our invitation, for this interview. There is something particularly striking for us, and one which we need an answer. Your profile says, and I'll refer to your words, it says, enthusiastic representative and promoter for flexible packaging Europe. So can you please give us an insider perspective of what you mean by that, your responsibilities and activities at the FPE?
Yeah. So Flexible Packaging Europe is the industry association of the flexible packaging industry. And I'm the executive director. However, I feel that we have so many good arguments, and I'm becoming quite passionate when we talk about packaging and to promote flexible packaging. So that's why there is in the profile an enthusiastic promoter, and there's always a possibility to educate or to at least raise awareness with people when talking about packaging. Fortunately, we are living in an industry where our products are touched daily by all of us and colleagues, friends, families. So this makes it quite exciting.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. So our first question is, what exactly is the role of flexible packaging Europe in our society?
So as I said before, we are the industry association. We conduct a lot of services for the industry, which individual companies could do on their own, but then would have to do it all on their own. And we are the voice of the industry to the outside. Internally, we do a lot of education, market analysis. Outside, we promote, meanwhile, almost exclusively with sustainability aspects in all kinds of fields. We conduct a lot of studies to show the benefits of flexible packaging to society and what flexible packaging could even further play as a role in the circular economy.
Thank you. I will take you on something you mentioned about educating people and about sustainability. You must be aware of this, that 30% of annual food production is lost or wasted. So how is Flexible Packaging Europe addressing the food waste crisis?
We are one of the initiators of the Safe Food campaign of 𝗧𝗹𝗸 and the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, which UNEP joined later on. And there we started to address this issue because we know, don't just believe, but we know that in particular flexible packaging can prevent food waste, which is, with just in Europe, over almost 90 million tons occurring every year, one of the major issues. And if I may even quote the former FAO director, Chinese origin, he mentioned that if food waste would be a country, it would be the third largest emitter of carbon after US and China. And just imagine the entire production of China would go to waste every year. So this is just a great picture to see what food waste is really occurring and making to the environment. Many people believe because food is a natural product, it does not harm the environment, but many people just don't realize how much efforts go into the food production itself. Yeah? And so if we waste that, it's just a waste and harming the planet.
I think you touched on a very interesting point. I mean, for us within the industry, it's quite common to know that packaging in general and flexible packaging in particular can protect food. But what is exactly the role? Maybe you could a little elaborate on this. How can flexible packaging or performance packaging, as we call it, support the reduction of food waste?
One of the great advantages, and it's actually the base concept of flexible packaging, that it is using the minimum of material to perform. Yeah? So we have a toolbox of materials from which we take the materials necessary and just the right amount of material which is necessary to create a flexible packaging dedicated for the particular product requirements. Yeah? So each flexible packaging is a little different than the other and always depending on the food. Yeah? So each food has its own requirements and also how it is intended to be consumed. That also plays a role, and therefore flexible packaging can greatly provide the perfect protection with the minimum amount of material used. Yeah? Just to give you another number, 40% of the packaged food in Europe is packed with flexible packaging, but the amount flexible packaging is in the entire packaging mix is just 10%. So packing 40% with just 10% of the material is already showing the great advantages and the resource efficiency of flexible packaging.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Do you think there, because of these great advantages, there is also kind of a disbelief? I mean, you mentioned the protection of food, so it really goes into also the direction of extension of shelf life or providing shelf life for the value chain. I believe also quite big misconception is that people tend to think that, okay, this food has such a long shelf life, or it has a longer shelf life than usual. They're probably putting preservatives into the food. What is the relationship to packaging and those kind of ideas from the market?
I think particularly today, everybody or most of the consumers would like to have it all natural. This is also the reason for these organic trends, etc. And everything what is industrialized is a bit suspicious. Flexible packaging can provide without any, can even avoid additives to the food to extend the shelf life to the benefit, of avoiding food waste. And there are, multiple technologies in food processing which can extend also the shelf life of the package of the product itself. Yeah? And flexible packaging is just supporting it. Yeah?
Okay. So it's basically, extending shelf life is one thing. I think what we should also really focus is providing the right shelf life, because the changes in consumer behaviors might affect this, and providing the right shelf life and not only focusing on extending it is basically where flexible packaging is going, right?
Yeah, exactly. Your platform is called Change and Challenge, and one of the challenges is for the fillers and the food processors is also to reevaluate the requirements. What is the shelf life necessary today when you consider that there are so many supermarkets and food retailers open, depending on the country, but really more and more countries 24/7 open, so that we basically have our storage in the retail as a consumer. So we don't need to store that much at home, and therefore the shelf life, up to 2 years is quite long. And then the entire industry, packaging and food industry, we all have to question ourselves, is that necessary, or could a reduced shelf life and then also reduced efforts for the packaging make more sense in a holistic way for the environment?
Yeah, absolutely. So optimizing basically the packaging and designing the packaging for really the needs of the consumer, and through performance packaging, giving the, let's say, the fresh, because as you said, most people like this fresh and ecological way of food, and with the right packaging we can avoid those additives and provide this, even though it's a plastic packaging, but still a fresh and a natural product to the market. Thank you.
Now, from all indications, flexible packaging is a product. Now, what are the trends in flexible packaging as a product, and why do we have these trends? I mean, retailers, brand owners, even consumers, they have expectations, they kind of trigger certain trends. So what are the current trends?
So the general trend is from rigid towards flexibles, and so this is ongoing since years or decades, and the reason is that flexible packaging is probably the first reason is that it's quite economic for the fillers, plus it is easy adaptable also in sizes. So the variations in SKUs the fillers provide can be adapted or with flexible packaging very easily. And we were just talking about these technologies, extending shelf life, etc. Then new filling lines or new filling technologies are there that more products can be filled in flexible packaging. Yeah? So just imagine 10 years ago, putting olives in a flexible pouch would be impossible to believe. Yeah? Or other products like baby food is a very glass-dominant market segment, and then more and more flexible packaging is being introduced there to the benefit also of convenience for customers. Yeah? So if you imagine young mothers going around and just having lightweight packaging as flexible packaging instead of glass jars in other rigid packaging, this is kind of one of the triggers which make flexible packaging substitute other forms of packaging. Yeah? And it is also avoiding a lot of materials put on the market. Because it's so lightweight, it has advantages in logistics, etc. And also at the end of the life cycle, what is not put on the market has not to be dealt with in the waste management. It's relatively simple, but it's not yet there with everybody. Yeah?
Yeah, very true. I mean, you mentioned kind of the convenience aspect from the consumer side. Do you see any other drivers or any other changes from the consumer in a sense of changes in consumer behaviors that will drive new packaging innovations or new packaging designs in the future?
Yeah, one of the major trends is also the smaller sizes of households, or less people per household. Which require also smaller sizes of packaging, or portions, or even single portion packaging. Another trend is the spontaneous on-the-go consumption, which also creates food waste. Yeah? So imagine you have your fridge full of products, but then because it's a sunny week, and then a lot of friends call you every night, okay, let's go out. And so if that the portions are too big in your fridge, and then you don't consume, and that will trigger food waste again. And so therefore probably smaller portions are better fit for today's spontaneous and convenience world and behavior.
Okay. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we can see the topic of more convenience and having the flexibility basically in your lifestyle to decide what kind of food you want to consume in this particular moment. I believe, especially over the course of the last 3 to 4 months, we were able to observe companies like HelloFresh or Blue Apron tripling their market cap. And this trend of meal kits and grocery e-commerce, I believe, is evident, and we could observe this during the last K Fair. Do you think that the packaging also needs to adapt and to change for those kind of new ways of shopping?
Yes, certainly, because the frequency of shopping trips, pre-pandemic, had increased, but less items were purchased. Now in the pandemic, it went all back to less trips to the retailer per week, because everybody had to avoid the number of trips. But in general, the trend is ongoing, that the lighter packaging is necessary, also more convenience aspects in the packaging, easy opening, reclosability, all these aspects are necessary and expected by the consumers, because nobody or less people have storage containers at home where they repack certain foods. The packaging probably also has a function, more storage function at home than before.
Okay, yeah.
You mentioned earlier, you highlighted benefits such as resource efficiency. You also talked about the innovative nature of flexible packaging. I mean, you referred to things that previously were unthinkable, like food in flexible packaging, baby food, and all that. So, I mean, ordinarily you would think that there should not be any problem, penetrating the market. There should be no problem sensitizing people about the benefits of flexible packaging. So what are the challenges that flexible packaging is facing in the market, and what measures have you implemented, to address those challenges?
Okay. Well, one of the challenge is existing filling equipment, which we cannot change. We just have to wait. When it's updated and replaced, then more and more filling equipment is fit for flexible packaging. The other challenge is that today there is plastic has not the best image, in particular plastic packaging. And when we go to flexible plastic packaging, this is kind of the worst of everything, because it is considered as non-recyclable. And this is one of the major challenges we are facing today. The legislation, political direction is circular economy, and many legislators and politicians are putting recyclability equal to circular economy, which is not exactly true, but recycling is kind of a buzzword, or recyclability is a buzzword of today, and so everything seems to be recyclable, although just recycling per se is not helping the environment, in general.
Yeah, I think, absolutely. I think you touched upon a very important topic. I mean, the perception of certain types of packaging is a big issue and a big challenge. And I mean, we have here two communication experts. What do you think about the role of the industry, of brand owners with regards to the communication? Because you said it yourself, a lot of misconception about the real benefits are out there. How do you see the importance? I mean, maybe the two of you actually.
You want to go first?
I think the first thing which I also observed that you have an expertise in that area is strategic communication and crisis communication. I mean, of course, we cannot say that the packaging industry is in a crisis, you know, but then there are certain, the industry needs to implement certain communication strategies, you know, which are strategic. Strategic in the context of emphasizing the benefits, you know, informing people, you know, correcting these misconceptions, you know, and giving people the opportunity to make decisions. You know, when people are informed, then it's not difficult convincing them as to the benefits of flexible packaging. Yeah.
I certainly agree. The communication is key, and we have enough arguments. And fortunately, we see more and more brand owners also communicating it even on the packs. The benefits of flexible packaging, just to name two. First is years ago in the UK, a major filler of instant coffee provided pouches to refill the rigid jar, whether it was plastic or glass, doesn't matter. But they were clearly stating on the pack, okay, this refill pack saves more than 90% of packaging material, you know, addressing the consumer. We see that also in refill systems of detergents, where, you know, pouches with soup, liquid soup are used to refill the rigid bottle with a dispenser. And on the pack, it also, they meanwhile increasingly say, okay, this saves 60–70% of materials compared to if you would buy this rigid bottle every time it is finished. Yeah, so I think there is an increasing confidence also from brand owners. A former colleague told me once, the best sustainable packaging is the one you wouldn't consider as sustainable, because you can only behave sustainable just by the use of this product. So, and therefore we probably have to go. The biggest challenge today is that flexible packaging is not widely recycled. And that is an issue, and that's what we address very strongly all the time, and also by actions. So we were also the co-initiator of 𝗧𝗹𝗸, the industry-wide project and initiative to make flexible packaging fit for the circular economy, where the entire value chain is cooperating. So from raw material producers, film manufacturers, converters, fillers, brand owners, retailers, waste management, recycling companies, and technology providers, and all of them are working together to make flexible packaging really fit for a circular economy. And the open issue here starts mainly at the waste management. So it starts with collection. Yeah, it's very simple, but you know, if you don't collect, you cannot sort or recycle. So that is probably too simple for some people. However, and now we push that all packaging is collected, and fortunately the latest legislation in Europe is going into the right direction. So there is a ban foreseen for landfilling packaging waste, and once all packaging is collected, there is also a pressure to recycle it. Until now, there are certain countries in Europe where flexible packaging is simply not collected. And so flexible packaging cannot be recycled. And in parallel, there are new technologies coming to either mechanically or then chemically recycle those kind of packaging, flexible packagings, that it goes really straight into the circle for new products, whether those are packaging products or other valuable products, long or short life products, that doesn't matter. The important is that the raw materials are not lost. Yeah, so this is really important. And so we are providing a lot of studies, expertise, providing platforms, joining platforms, so that knowledge is exchanged, and so everybody really can take their part of their role in the value chain, because there is simply nobody who can do it on their own. No brand owner can do it on their own, no recycler, no packaging material manufacturer. It's the entire value chain which has to play a role, and at the end of the day, it is also the consumer who has to sort in a good way. Yeah? And obviously not to litter. That is the worst for the entire industry. If there is litter on the streets or in the environment and in the nature, it's a bad image. Yeah?
So in that case, we can also say that this is a behavioral problem. You know, we have the problem of plastic littering. You know, of course, it's people's attitude, you know, to plastic waste that is a major cause of this. So, do you think there is a behavioral problem that needs to be addressed?
Yes. So kids have to learn it at home, that you shouldn't litter, that you should sort your waste. Yeah, that should be standard education, and also in schools everywhere. And people should also put pressure on other people when they see people littering. It's just bad behavior. Yeah, so and if we don't collect it, we cannot recycle it. I can just repeat myself. It's very simple.
Yeah, I think you mentioned especially the 𝗧𝗹𝗸 initiative, and I mean one of the core principles of 𝗧𝗹𝗸 is collecting all plastic packaging materials. And what I'm curious to hear about your perspective, do you think if we really can build an effective waste management system, do you think we can restore the respect for plastic packaging, as the marketing director of Dow Chemicals wrote actually in one of his articles, that bringing back the benefits back, if we can ensure that all those materials come into a second life or can be upcycled or can given a new life, basically.
I'm sure of that. So if we avoid that, those emotional pictures, marine litter, etc., and I think everybody has seen dolphins and turtles with marine litter. If we can avoid those pictures, by simply collecting all the packaging waste, even globally, then if the emotions are out there, then people accept, okay, it is plastic, it has its benefits, alternatives are not better or even worse, and therefore I strongly believe that the society is ready to acknowledge the benefits of packaging. We have seen that now in the pandemic, when in certain countries the loose fresh food sections had a major decrease, and the customers demanded packaged food. So people realize that yes, it is packaging, but it cannot be avoided because it provides essential functions. And in the past months, hygiene was was probably the highest agenda point. And so therefore, people realize that packaging has a benefit, and we just have to treat it wisely after its use. Yeah.
Absolutely. So basically, if we manage to build it up and we can communicate effectively, because right now we are trying to do, I mean, our initiative, which is basically to share knowledge across the industry and across the whole value chain. Do you think that those factual communication at this stage actually reach brand owners, retailers, the end consumer? Or, I mean, you know that we take decisions in an irrational way and it's just justified with rational numbers. How do you see this point of circling back to this topic?
I'm convinced it is heard and acknowledged at least until the brand owner level and filler level. It is increasingly acknowledged by the retailers. I'm not sure whether we, as a small part of the packaging industry, are strong enough to convince the end consumer. However, if brand owners and retailers communicate in a more positive way how they also address the sustainability issue, and they could simply reach their targets they put out for reducing the plastic packaging or packaging in general by simply switching to flexibles. This is a very simple way to avoid packaging materials. We did a study together with 𝗧𝗹𝗸 where we had as a hypothetical scenario to switch all packaging towards flexible packaging, that just in Europe 21 million tons of primary packaging materials for food could be avoided. This would meet easily all sustainability packaging targets of the retailers immediately, their reduction targets. We know that it's not possible because there are different packaging and packaging types necessary for different consumption, points in areas.
So we have a situation where there has been several projections, call it speculations, call it predictions about flexible packaging, statistics. It has been described as the future by industry players. But where do you see the biggest opportunity for growth when we talk about flexible packaging? I know this is a big leap into the future, but
as I said, there is the general trend will go on, move towards flexibles, and then in developing countries where more and more people move to the cities, so the urbanization will also trigger further demand for flexible packaging. Of course, they simply need packaged food, and then flexible packaging has a major role. So this is kind of a more long-term vision. And if we are more people on the planet, we need packaging, including flexible packaging, to feed all the people. We were talking earlier about the reduction or the necessity to reduce food waste. And I'm strongly convinced that we could feed the world if we wouldn't waste food, either before processing or after processing. We just have to become smarter, all of us, to the benefit of the people of the planet.
So we have a situation where, of course, this will be taking you back 2 steps or so. You talked about the need to communicate, the need to inform consumers, the need to sensitize, across the value chain, but there's this recurring problem of, okay, now there's more or less a mini crisis, if if I can categorize it as that, the war on plastics. People have misconceptions about plastics. So apart from the communication approach, are there alternative approaches which the FPE has implemented, to respond to this problem?
Yeah. So first, it's the communication to non-legislative stakeholders, and there is also the dialogue with legislators that certain legislation is not pushed through because of public pressure or media pressure, probably to say, and the legislators are convinced of the facts. However, the issue is not very black and white, is very gray, and that is a bit difficult to put into good legislation, but we are supporting politicians and legislators to fine-tune legislation that flexible packaging is not killed as an unintended consequence of simple to communicate legislation. Yeah, so recycling targets are fine, but the overall target is resource efficiency and to use as little materials as possible. And yeah, flexible packaging, as I said, can play a great role, and we are with many stakeholders in dialogue to also convince them, and it's relatively easy to convince them in a personal dialogue, but then we jointly have to go against this simple public perception plastic and packaging is bad in general. Yeah? So we have been educated as consumers for decades now that packaging is bad, and therefore it's as hard to convince them that it's not that bad. Yeah? But I think the pandemic showed it is possible, and also when you touch other areas, with food, people might say it is simple to avoid packaging, but once it comes to pharmaceutical or medical packaging, then there is no doubt, even with the strongest fighters against packaging, that packaging and even plastic packaging is absolutely necessary for people's health and well-being. So
that's true. I think it's particularly curious. You as a representative for the Flexible Packaging Europe reinforcing the need to reduce actually the amount of packaging. It's, I think, for a lot of people is or might feel it contradictory, but I think you touch here a very important point. So the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. I think you said this before. We need to see this in a more holistic approach. So when we're talking about the reduction of plastics, it should never compromise the safety of food, but we should always strive to use the minimum resources, as you said. And I believe the industry and initiatives like the Change and Challenge, like 𝗧𝗹𝗸, are really striving to raise awareness and to really make it all happen, that all industry players, I believe 170 members right now at 𝗧𝗹𝗸, or a crazy amount of numbers, to see how really important this topic is, not only driven by the consumers, but also for the companies, because the sustainable approach to this topic really will make a difference if a company will exist in the future or not, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So the reduction of materials is necessary, and it's actually nothing new. Yeah. So this was going on for decades, maybe for other reasons, more on the commercial side. But reduction of material and thickness of films and wall thicknesses has always been in evolution, not revolution, but evolution in the packaging industry. And material producers, can add features to the materials that, for example, the film can be thinner, but with the same or even higher strengths. filling equipment can adopt and cope better with thinner materials. I know from other areas that the existing and installed filling equipment is actually the barrier to reduction. Yeah, so that newer filling lines can deal better with thinner materials. And that is just a matter of time than always to reduce and to make a better performance of less material even.
Okay, so there is really hope at the end of the tunnel, and the sustainability goals that set by the European Union, set by many companies within the industry, is more than achievable.
Yes.
This is nice. Nice to hear.
So the FPE has been at the forefront of a transition, trying to convey the sustainability message, to consumers, but I mean, it can be problematic if we want to look at it from the perspective of, this has been misconceptions that has existed for decades, So what has changed in in the FPE's sustainability message compared to previous messages?
It's we communicate more and we have a lot more facts available, so we could substantiate what we knew now with facts, also from external research institutes, and there are a lot of studies going on, also not only done by us but also by others, which confirm what we say. So the toolbox of facts has tremendously increased, and therefore we can use a lot more tools. And what Alex said earlier, we probably are a bit more emotional than before. Yeah? So not just with the hard facts, but also trigger with some emotions. Other industries or products might be better, using even more emotions, but we already did some major steps towards this to easier digest the messages.
Okay, yeah. So I think we need to work a little bit more on this part of the industry to really, support our factual arguments with some emotional aspects to really make aware of the people. And then good work, yeah.
And I strongly emphasize, all people in the industry, convince your friends and family. We shouldn't be afraid working for this industry. We shouldn't hide. We know that we can help the society. We have a play to role. We have challenges which we are facing, and therefore we shouldn't be afraid and shouldn't hide.
Absolutely. I think this is what we've been discussing also for the CNC. I mean, all the content that we provide, all the articles. Our main idea was, convincing someone. It's nice, of course, to say what is going on, but what we are trying to do is to provide the information or the critical information so people can actually make up their mind, because it's of course it might look or see very one-sided if people from the industry come and say, okay guys, you need to use flexible packaging, this is the best. Of course people will say, yeah, they're just trying to protect their business. But what we are trying to do in the CNC is really to provide as much as information and also critical information so people can really make up their minds. And I think you mentioned this right in the beginning. Information is key for education, and if we can provide the right information, present it in a nice way so it resonates, not only with the end consumer, but also with the retailers, especially with the brand owners. If we can convince someone who had rather a more, let's say, conservative approach to it, and he thinks, okay, now something can be done, and apparently it's not that bad. I found this, this, and this, and then they can build up their own minds. And I hope this will be not only for us, but also for the future generations, a useful source.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I think we are almost at the end. is there something that you would like to share? I mean, with the audience, something from FPE that you would like to?
No, I think I've said everything. No, I think we appreciate the initiative like the Change and Challenge platform. Let me call it like that, because this is something where information is exchanged, provided to external stakeholders, and that's why we are happy to support such kind of initiatives.
Perfect. And Guido, thank you very much for being with us today at this kind of rainy weather in Düsseldorf. So we're looking forward to support you, and we hope that we can actually make a change within the industry and impact the society towards a more sustainable future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guido. It's nice having you.
Yeah, thank you.